It's now my pleasure to introduce the CEO of BirdLife South Africa to present his annual report. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Vernon. It's quite daunting. I'm not sure whether there's ever been such a big BirdLife South Africa AGM or SOS AGM ever. Very auspicious occasion. It's a great pleasure for me to stand here and talk to you. And I think the stage is probably moving a lot more than the seats at the back, so bear with me. Before we start, a year ago, Vernon and I were doing a road trip from Bloemfontein to Johannesburg. Vernon and I is thinking up big ideas. I'm the one who kind of keeps them in check. I'm the one who implements. So the more creative ones, I say no, Vernon. But he said, let's have our next AGM at sea. He said, can you go and see Starlight Cruises in Johannesburg? And so we went and saw them. About a week later, we managed to pull this off. But these are some images that were taken by the helicopter that flew over us on Friday as we left Cape Town Harbour. Pretty sort of postcard type picture, I think. These were shown on ETV on both Friday and Saturday night, apparently. And they're on Facebook already and will be sent around the world. And we'll have them in our next issue of our magazine. Just a few more. See if you can spot Wally, or spot yourself there. Here we are, Save Our Seabirds. And it's probably Aspen took this one, I think, a couple of days ago on the ship. I think the captain's dinner was really fantastic. And we were a bit apprehensive about it. We weren't sure how many people would come out in their masks, and so many of you did. And thanks very much for that. It really got us all in the party mood. Quite a few got to see early hours of the morning. I'm sure the masks got us going. Okay, my job is to tell you a little bit about the organization's work in the last year. You do all have a copy of the annual report. For those who haven't got one, hopefully there were enough, you can contact us and we will gladly post you a copy. They're also on our website. You can download them, send the link to other people, spread the word, let people know about our work. So I'm going to just talk about some of the things that we've done during the last year. If I spoke about all the work we've done, even the majority of it, I'll have to stand up there for several hours. It's just a very brief summary. And that's what I'm going to talk about. Firstly, finances, fundraising, marketing, awareness, very briefly, because Vernon's going to talk about that. Conserving terrestrial birds and seabirds, protecting sites and habitats, and helping people. That's really our work. BirdLife South Africa has aligned its work very, very closely with BirdLife International. So we have the same focal areas, we have the same programs. It makes sense for us to implement the clever ideas that BirdLife International has thought up in Cambridge and at the global conferences. Those are the things that have been decided will be good for our birds. The partners around the world, 117 partners, their responsibility is to implement these strategies. So firstly, finances and fundraising. Now, for those who look at the annual report, I think the second last page, you will see that BirdLife South Africa's financial position is a lot healthier than it has been in the past. A number of reasons why. Importantly, I think that people are committed to our cause. More and more people, individuals, corporates are getting behind what we do. And they see the positives, they see the successes as well, and they're willing to support what we do. So for 3 consecutive years, we've made a little surplus, which is very nice. And our treasurer will talk about that in a moment. Most of the positions at BirdLife South Africa are now funded for 3 to 5 years, which is a very nice position to be in. A lot of our projects are well funded. The Important Bird Areas program is one of our best funded programs at the moment. The funding is coming from a variety of sources. Firstly, Golden Bird patrons, corporate members, the Hanshausen Charitable Trust has been particularly generous. In fact, there's been many, many more donors. In the annual report, we've listed those donors. I'd like to encourage you to have a look and look at that list of donors. We've also established the BirdLife National Trust. We've recently registered the trust and appointed trustees. The trust is going to look at the long-term sustainability of BirdLife South Africa. We think that if we have a large amount, it's probably more than 50 million in this trust, there'll be enough revenue to sustain the organisation and well into the future. We also have a legacy program which we promote very actively, and many people are going to leave us money one day and contribute to the sustainability of our organisation and the work we do. I'd like to mention some of the support we get. Especially, we had 28 Golden Bird patrons last year. And I have to thank Darby Chamberlain for really coming up with this idea, and Peter Sullivan, I think, our past chairman. These are individuals who support what we do. We had 28 Golden Bird patrons contribute 1.425 million rand last year. Unencumbered, So we use it to cover our core costs. We're really appreciative of this donation, these donations. I think there's 10 of our Golden Bird patrons here at Flock at Sea. They're wearing their gold pins. They get a gold pin, which is produced by Charles Gregg Jewelers, and look out for them. There's a couple in front here. And thank you very much to our Golden Bird patrons. Golden Bird patrons get pins, paintings, and very nice certificates. And these are presented at very nice functions we hold around the country. There was one in the Westerbox last year, so we may recognise Tanya Brown. Very nice one at the Westcliff in Johannesburg later in the year. I think almost, in fact, all but one of the people in those two are here present. And then Gaynor Rupert's hosts us at Lormerins every year as well, where we acknowledge the contributions of our Western Cape Golden Bird patrons. And Ishmael Barat in the middle there is one of our newest Golden Bird patrons. We also have a large number of corporate members. Corporate members are growing, I have to thank them too. And I think we have at least 3 or 4 corporate members, the CEOs or MDs of those companies here too. Okay, the next point is about marketing and awareness. And before I talk about this slide, I have to say that 4 years ago I went into the field with a really good friend, Alan Craig, who was the CEO of Vodacom. He's now the CEO of Cell C. We spent a week photographing birds and mammals. At the end of that time, we were sitting around the fire one night, braaiing and drinking G&T as Alan likes to drink. And I said to him, Alan, you've learned a lot about BirdLife South Africa in the last week. Tell me what you would do. And he said, there's only one thing I'd do. I'd make people more aware of you. You need to make yourself well-known. The more well-known you are, the more success you're going to have. And it wasn't long after that that this gentleman in the middle, Graham Warsop, asked us to come down to Cape Town to talk to him and tell him about what we do. Graham is the chairman and founder of the Jupiter Drawing Room, one of the most successful ad agencies in the world. And he's one of the most successful advertisers. And he, after listening to us, decided to adopt us as his chosen charity. So we have the Jupiter Drawing Room as our pro bono ad agency. Wow. And they've done wonderful work for us. That's Graham and his team. Every year there's a new team. He just keeps a few of them on, and they're really incredible. Vernon and I met the new team the other day. And these are some of the sort of things they've come up with. The hourglass designs, I'm sure Vernon will mention this. And these are in Time Magazine, airports, shopping centres and so on. And shortly after that, I met Barry Sayer, the MD of Continental Outdoor Media, through Peter Sullivan, and he said he would like to help us with billboards, both digital and the traditional billboards. And around the country we have these billboards. You would have probably, for those who flew into Cape Town, would have been welcomed with that billboard in the arrival area at Cape Town International Airport. And then we've hosted some really good events during last year, and just briefly, I know Vernon's not showing pictures, he's probably going to be mentioning these. This is the Save Our Seabird Festival, Freshly Ground performed for us. We had an In the Pink evening last year on Valentine's Day, where we raised 200,000 Rand for flamingo conservation. Bernie and Martin at the bottom, they also on the cruise, and they were present in this very nice event. We had a very successful Owl Awards function. We put beautiful owls, bronze owls that have been designed and made by Christopher Gregg from Charles Gregg Jeweler. And some of the recipients of the Owl Awards are last year's Owl Awards are here, I think in Christopher, in the middle on the right. We also had our first Important Bird Areas Golf Day last year, which was also a great success. And we raised a lot of money for the Important Bird Areas program. And on the left is Rob Avendelon, and he's very kindly also on the cruise with us. We had a conference last year attached to our Flock and PE, and it was an ornithological conference, which was a wonderful success. And that was the billboard that welcomed the flockers to Port Elizabeth. So that's the awareness work we're doing, and I think it's certainly helping. As I go knock on the doors of CEOs of big companies, corporates in Johannesburg, they already know about us, which certainly helps me as I raise funds for the important conservation work that we do. But the most important work we do is really conserving our birds. This is our Red Data book. Martin will talk about in a moment about the revision of this Red Data book. But these birds are our responsibility. 15% of our country's birds are listed in the Red Data book, and we have an obligation to look after them. There's no other single organisation that said we will help birds. We put up our hand and said we will help these threatened birds. So a lot of our work is focused on the more threatened birds. We can't do it all alone. We don't have all the funding we need. We don't have the capacity to implement all the work that needs to be done to conserve our birds. But we have been using BirdLife International's Preventing Extinctions program to raise the money through species champions to conserve or undertake research which will help conserve some of these threatened birds. And these are just some of the species champions which have come on board in recent times to support the work that we're doing on a number of our threatened birds. We're also growing the number of species guardians we have. And we're a relatively small NGO, we are growing, but we need assistance. And these species guardians are actually doing the research and doing the monitoring and doing the conservation work to help these threatened species. One bird that we've really taken responsibility for is the white-winged flufftail. The Middelpunt Wetland Trust has been doing work on white-winged flufftails for the last 20 or so years. We've now taken over the administration of the Middelpunt Wetland Trust, and we've initiated a lot of work on this species. It's critically endangered in South Africa. It may be uplisted internationally to critically endangered. You're going to get more threatened than that. Next step from that is extinct. Hannelien has been initiated some genetic studies to see whether Ethiopian and South African birds are the same population. We're going to be doing some tracking work with very sophisticated devices. We're initiating some field surveys, and we, excitingly, will be building a captive facility for flufftails at the Johannesburg Zoo. Some mention has been made during this flock of the work we're doing on birds and renewable energy, birds and wind energy in particular. Investec are kindly funding a position at BirdLife South Africa where we're trying to influence where the wind farms are placed. They're known around the world to have a massive impact on birds if they're placed incorrectly. It's very, very exciting what we're doing to try at this very early stage, before any wind farms have been developed, to try and influence where they are placed. One of the worst places one could site wind farms is in Lesotho. The bearded vulture population is about half of what it was when Chris Brown did his PhD in the early 80s, about 100 pairs perhaps now. We'll see this species go extinct if we develop these wind farms in Lesotho. There's a few that are proposed. Just having a look at this is not bearded vultures, but this is Cape vultures. David Allen and Andrew Jenkins' work shows those black dots are the Cape vulture colonies in Lesotho. And that's the buffer area we've drawn around those colonies, 20-kilometer radius buffer area. You can imagine there's not much space between those buffers to actually locate wind farms. So it could really be bad for vultures if we build these wind farms in Lesotho. Peter mentioned the Atlas. I saw a couple of days ago, that was where the Atlas coverage was. Still some very important gaps. But this is really important. Not only to know where we should be focusing our attention, species which have ranges which are contracting, but also to have a measure of our success. Implementing conservation action like that of the African black oyster catcher. Quite nice to know that how things are changing with time. This is a species which is doing fairly well. The southern grey-headed sparrow, you can see the yellow and blue squares are where it's either increasing or expanded its range over time between the two Atlas projects. The seabird work is growing. This was always one of our flagship projects, but it's really going from strength to strength, mainly through the work that the Albatross Task Force is doing. You've heard a lot about this during the last couple of days. I won't mention too much. But been incredibly successful, and here you can see the decline in mortalities of albatrosses, petrels and other seabirds over time in the last 10 years. One of the most amazing success stories, and one that's used as an example of how conservation measures can be implemented to help threatened species. Now, the work that we've done in southern Africa is now going to be expanded to other parts of the world. And Ron Marie and Ross have recently been in Korea. We'll be working in Korean vessels in the not too distant future. Also, testing new devices to assist the fishing industries, hook pods, safe lead, and more. And also more and more work in the international waters, as I mentioned. Some of you may know about the really exciting work we're doing on African penguins. Peter Harrison mentioned the plight of these birds earlier today. You can see the tracking work that we've been doing, which is funded by the Charles van der Merwe Trust. It's very nice to have Rolf and William van der Merwe here at Flock at Sea with us. But you can see that the tracks on the left-hand side around Cape Town, the birds are foraging far wider than the ones on the south coast. Less food in the west, more food in the south. They've got to go much further. Numbers continue to decline, breeding success is not good. So now it's up to implementing important conservation measures to help the species. As we left Cape Town Harbour, the helicopter flying around above us, there was a very important lady in that helicopter. She lives in Barbados, in Atlanta and France, and it looks like she may be supporting our work to establish a new mainland colony for African penguins. But more about that later. Protecting sites and habitats. This is important. One can't save species by just addressing the threats. One is to look at the sites, the habitats in which they occur. And one of BirdLife International flagships projects is the Important Bird Areas program. Those are our important bird areas around South Africa. If we lose those, we're going to lose species. We've done a lot, an enormous amount in the Important Bird Area program in the last 2 years. I think the IBA program is now sort of 7 people strong and growing and also doing really good work. All the information about the important bird areas is available on our website. We updated the IBA directory, which was first published in '98. It's now available on our website. But very, very importantly, we can't, from Johannesburg, actually work in these IBAs and do the IBA assessments and establish site support groups and work with the bird clubs and members. So what we've done is we've managed to recruit or find the funding for regional conservation managers across the country. There's 4 at the moment. We hope to expand this to cover the whole country in the future. These regional conservation managers are responsible for IBAs. And as of today, 35% of those IBAs have been assessed. Assessing an IBA is a lot of work. Very detailed work, site visits, working with all the interested and affected parties to find out where the problems are. This is all going to culminate later in this year in a status and trends report for our important bird areas, the very first one in BirdLife South Africa is compiled. We also look after important sites and habitats. I think you all know about the work we've been doing in Mapungubwe. Fortunately, haven't been as successful as we would have liked. It's an alliance of NGOs that have been doing their best to protect Mapungubwe from coal mining. There's other such sites around the country that we're working on. There's a mining proposed for the Dullstrom area, going to threaten Bilprint, the wetland, which is very important for the white-winged flufftail. Lastly, we work with people. Now, one can't conserve birds without working with people. And people are very important to us. We managed to get you all on the ship, so it does show that we do think about you all. But there's a lot of AV tourism work that gets done. Our AV tourism division, one of our flagship projects for many years. But there's quite a lot that's happened during recent time, continues to happen. Firstly, we're involved in the National Strategic Development Plan for birding tourism in South Africa. A couple of weeks ago, we got an invitation to address Parliament, I think it's going to be next month, about this niche market, which is so important, which is worth somewhere around R1 billion a year in South Africa. We're including birding into provincial tourism strategies as well. More and more of the provinces, as well as the district municipalities, are asking us to get involved. We launched the fall birding route late last year. One of our flagship projects is the bird guide training program, and over the years I think we've trained about 300 bird guides, probably about 150 of them are actively working as bird guides. SAS will fund this work. The guides are amazing, and I think there's about 5 or 6 bird guides, community bird guides on the cruise with us. SAS will continue to support the work. We've been able to give them mentoring courses, provide uniforms, equipment, and we're now involving the bird guides in more and more projects. We're also involved outside the country. We're involved in establishing a new conservation NGO in Mozambique through funding from the Critical Ecosystem Partnership Fund. We're hoping this will be a precursor for a BirdLife partner one day in Mozambique. And of course our magazine. Taken a lot of our time during the last few months, so I really need to compliment the team, and particularly Eve Gracie, the editor, was editor of Africa Birds and Birding, now editor of African BirdLife. She's doing a wonderful job. And take the time when you get your copy to drop her an email and just thank her, and mention some of the good work that's being done. It is an incredible magazine. I think the best birds and bird watching magazine in the world, and any BirdLife partner which puts its magazine in the retail market. Just to end off, this is all teamwork. One can't do this alone. This is the BirdLife South Africa staff. I think one staff member was missing from that slide. She was in Australia attending a wedding. But that's the team, a fairly small team of about 27 staff that do all the work. And what I'd like to do before I end off, if you don't mind, I'd like the staff that are in this room to stand up so everybody can see them. There's about 20 BirdLife South Africa staff on this cruise. Please stand up, BirdLife South Africa staff. All of the people that are involved in BirdLife South Africa, very involved in BirdLife South Africa, also stand. I like the people on the committees, the various committees, from the council, executive committee, the endorsement committee, all the other committees, also to stand so people can see who you are. patrons to stand up. Corporate members, there are a few. Peter, where are you? We also have Bird Club committee representatives here. The chairman, the present and past Bird Club committee members. Could you also stand, please? Community bird guides too. This is a growing team of people, and I have to thank you very much, all of you, for your incredible support. And there's many more of you. The other group that I was going to ask to stand up with are the spouses. Starting with mine, who's lived apart from me for the last 4 years. This is really important work, folks, and I'd like to encourage you to support us. Peter Harrison did so very eloquently earlier today. Peter Ryan did so as well. We cannot do this alone. We're the generation that can make a difference. The previous generation couldn't because they didn't know about all these problems. The next generation won't be able to because it'll all be gone. We are the generation that can make the difference. My favorite analogy I like to use is the dawn chorus. I have found great pleasure for the last 35 years of waking up at our property in the Lowveld listening to the dawn chorus. Firstly on my own, then with my wife, then with my kids. That could be gone one day. What a horrible indictment to leave. What a horrible indictment, a horrible legacy for us to leave. So please support BirdLife South Africa. There's a lot to do and we need your help. Thanks very much.